What's up guys? So today we are talking about shooting manual on your phone, in video specifically. So instead of swiping right into your camera app and shooting auto like a lot of us do, it's not bad, but to get the best quality out of your phone, shooting manual is the best call. And since Niles is gone, we got Yuri back. Hey. Brought his truck, he brought his mountain bike, so we're gonna do a little bit of filming today on the phone. So basically what I want to talk about first is frame rate and resolution. Now, there's probably a ton of debate on this. You can read all day long about what's the best frame rate, what's the best resolution to shoot in. But on your phone, if you want to get the maximum quality, this is an iPhone 8 Plus, and a lot of the new iPhones can shoot 4K. So I would say if you have the time, the computer space, and you have the processing power to shoot 4K, always shoot 4K. With that said, I shoot a lot of 1080 still. A lot of the times I just need to turn around a vlog real quick or something quick for social media. And a lot of the times I'm in 1080. It looks pretty good still and completely gets the job done. 24 frames per second is kind of the cinematic standard. That's what I shoot most things in. That's what this is being shot in right now. Anything in normal speed, I like 24 frames. 30 frames per second is also great for that just like normal everyday look. It looks less cinematic in my opinion. But you can't go wrong with either of those two. Shooting in 60 frames per second, I think typically is good for action sports. Today we'll be shooting a lot of 60 frames per second of Yuri mountain biking. It's a good frame rate to have, like be able to ramp the speed up or slow it down. 120 frames per second and 240 frames per second are all meant to be for slow motion, super slow motion. It's good for like B-roll, good transitions, really beautiful slow-mo. Within the Moment app, it's super easy to control what your shutter speed and resolution is. 4K, 24 frames per second. To change it, you just tap it. Simple enough. And as simple as that, you're changing settings. So it's just good to understand what settings you like and what settings work best. All right, first shot we want to do is Yuri actually pulling his bike out of the truck, right there. Kind of classic mountain bike intro shot, but I'll be shooting in 4K, 60 frames per second. Wide lens with a gimbal. The Smooth 4 we'll be shooting on today. All right, let's do this. All right, so the first test that we want to do here is I want to show you the difference between 24 frames per second and 60 frames per second and show you just real-time 24 frames per second, and then also I'll show you the real-time look of 60 frames per second and then the slowed down version of 60 frames per second. So Yuri's gonna ride. Should we do a follow cam shot? Yeah, let's do a follow cam shot. All right, I think we got the two clips. So at this location, we got a little trail that we found kind of ripping through here, and Yuri will come down, but this is the main point I want to make on this is your shutter speed. The most important thing you can do while shooting on a phone to make it not look like it was shot on a phone, because really, your aperture on a phone is locked. All that means is like you cannot control your aperture, so your shutter speed is the only thing in your ISO that you can change, besides putting a filter on, which we'll get to in the next section. Basically, a rule of thumb is you want to shoot twice your frame rate. So if your frame rate's 24 frames per second, which most of the time, that's what I'm shooting in, I want 1/48th. If you're shooting 60 frames per second, you want 1/20th. If you're shooting 30 frames per second, you get it, double it. So you might ask yourself, what if I don't double my shutter speed? What's it gonna do? That's not a big deal. It's gonna look like a phone. It's gonna look like, well, even DSLRs, you can crank your shutter speed and get kind of that like choppy look. It's not super smooth. So if you're shooting 24 frames per second and you want the 1/48th shutter speed, you have a nice motion blur going by. A little bit tricky to see, but shutter speed is right here and you can adjust it. As you can see, we're in 4K, 24 frames per second, and we want to click that right at 1/48th. So managing your shutter speed in the Moment app or in Filmic Pro is super easy. We have these sliders right here on the side that lets you control what shutter speed you're going for. Oh, what a good frame. Thumbnail? No, probably not. I'm gonna show you now an example of what it looks like with smooth shutter speed and what it looks like with like a cranked shutter speed, both at 24 frames per second, but it's gonna give you the difference in kind of the look. Nice. Perfect. One more thing to note, if your camera, like a DSLR or a different app that you're shooting in, can't shoot 1/48th, it's not a big deal. You can shoot 1/50th or whatever is the closest to that shutter speed. That will still give you the motion blur. But yeah, I can already tell by watching the back of these clips that you can see as I pan by the nice like kind of whip blur.
But it sucks when it hits you in your shins.
Ooh, this thing is bouncy. All right, a little bit sunny brings me to my next point, filters. There's a lot of different types of filters, ND filters, UV filters, polarizing filters, visco filter. Think of an ND filter as sunglasses for your camera. That's kind of the best way to look at it, because basically what it's doing is blocking the light that comes in by attaching it over your lens, giving you the desired shutter speed. Circular polarizing filters do a lot of cool stuff with water. UV filters cut down on the UV rays and act as protection. There's a whole slew of them. I'm not telling you which filter to buy, but I am telling you that an ND filter, you can buy them in stops, so you can buy them in 1 stop, 2 stop, 3 stop, 4 stop, 6 stop, or you can buy a variable ND filter, which they have kind of pros and cons, but as you can see when I rotate this, see how it gets lighter there and darker there. Filters are something that you actually do want to spend some money getting a good quality filter, because a low quality filter will take that expensive, nice looking glass you got and then put some weird like haze on it. So the Hoya filters are awesome. That's what we use most of the time here. Tiffin makes some good filters. You can't really go wrong with any of just the higher end filters. But what you do want to get is the Moment filter attachment for your Moment lenses. Basically, it's this setup here. This is just a little metal ring with a rubber collar in it. It's a press fit seal, and you just push it in like that. And there it is. And you can put any 62 millimeter filter threaded filters right on your lens. I'm not really going to show any examples of like shooting on the filters with and without. Really, it's just a shutter speed thing like we talked about in the last step to getting the right shutter speed. So make sure to get your filters. If you do have questions on filters, there's a lot of information out there, but leave a comment below and I'll do the best I can to answer those questions. Oh, also you can use any step-up ring with like a larger filter. So actually right here, this is a 77 millimeter variable ND filter. This is one I use for this camera that's shooting on here. It goes right on the lens. And you can get a step-up ring from 62 millimeter to, oh, I have one on here still, because I was trying it out. Boom, so you can put a 77 millimeter filter. It's just gonna add more weight to your Moment lens. Watch how funny this setup will look though. Kind of looks big, a little ridiculous. Boom. It's kind of rad though. All right. All right, so the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is locking your white balance. This is huge and something that sometimes gets neglected in the quickness of everything. Auto white balance is okay in certain circumstances when you're just getting a quick shot or something just for memories. But when you're trying to make your phone really be like a camera and you want a really high quality image, locking your white balance is crucial. It's super easy to lock your white balance in the Moment app. All you do is simply go over to the AWB. When you see AWB, that means auto white balance. When you start scrolling, it will lock itself. And I usually, when I'm outside, 5600 Kelvin is the standard daylight temperature color value. The reason you want to lock your white balance is so that mid-shot it doesn't change. Your phone does an okay job about choosing white balance. Actually, it's not that good. Sometimes it's okay. But basically what happens is, say you're filming a shot, dolly shot, walking shot, anything. It could be even on a tripod not moving, and all of a sudden the greens of the grass will start to change and you're not really sure why, or you go into a shaded spot, or really like if you have a lot of motion in your shot, the colors will just all of a sudden start changing. And that's because it's constantly trying to white balance itself. But if you lock it and you choose the white balance for outdoors, it's gonna stay nice and consistent throughout, making the shot less distracting and giving you just a better look of your image. I'm gonna give you just a quick example out here in this grassy field of what it looks like when you lock your white balance and what it looks like when you don't lock your white balance. One more quick tip, if you can shoot on your phone in even light, this kind of applies to a lot of cameras too, but the phones don't have insane dynamic range, so if you can find good shaded areas, avoid like really sunspotty spots, the shots will look that much better. Just nice, even, shadowy areas look super clean. So I've kind of had a little bit of mixture today, but when I'm really trying, yeah. But yeah, the phone definitely needs the help of like any type of nice even lighting that you can, and it will really look good. Thanks to Yuri for coming out and riding his mountain bike on a few of the shots today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I've never filmed mountain biking, so hopefully those shots still look okay, but basically the tips apply to anything you're shooting, action or dramas or anything. I think we got some stuff.